All right, we are two past, so we are going to get started. Hello and welcome to IAB Tech Lab's Content Monetization in an AI World webinar. Thank you so much for joining us. Before we get into today's content, just a couple slides about IAB Tech Lab. Tech Lab is a member-driven, member-developed organization of over 1,000 companies across 23 working groups, significantly more than that if you count sub-working groups. We have well over 3,000 participants across 44 countries. We are a global organization, and our vision is to establish open technical standards to support an ad-supported digital economy that enables businesses to prosper from the internet. Our mission is to develop global, open, interoperable technology standards that support growth and trust in the digital ecosystem. You may know us from some of our specifications, such as OpenRTB, ads.txt, sellers.json, FAST, and the Global Privacy Protocol, but we are significantly more than that. We have all of these specifications and our content monetization protocol, which we are here to talk to you about today. And with that, I will hand off to our main presenter, Lindsey Van Kirk of People Inc.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for being with us today. I think it's no surprise to everyone here that monetization for the open web is changing dramatically. And we've heard so much about this over the last few years. And really, the way that consumers are now accessing our information is changing dramatically, such that now up to 51% of web traffic is not human. And this is really shifting for us as publishers, just the dynamics of how people are consuming content, where they expect to see answers showing up, and ultimately what it means for the way that we monetize content, because we're no longer able to rely solely on just human eyeballs and advertising transactions alone to support the growth of a thriving publishing ecosystem. And what we know, if we go to the next slide, is that as usage of these large language models and as usage of these different consumer chat answer engine applications has grown, we've seen just an absolute explosion in the number of bots, LLMs, and agent crawlers that are hitting publisher content. And really, because all of these models require really good access to content in order to be successful on behalf of their users, they are hitting our content at a scale that is just absolutely astronomical. And previously, this exchange of, and the crawling is not something that's new to all of us as publishers. There's been tons of applications and partners who have needed to access our sites for a variety of reasons in real time for so many years. But the paradigm is really shifting in terms of what you allow from a crawler and then what you get back. So according to a recent interview with the Council on Foreign Relations, the Cloudflare CEO, Matthew Prince, was quoted as saying about 10 years ago, for almost every two pages of websites that Google scraped, they would send you one visitor. And that was a really fair trade, it felt like, because you needed to know what was on the internet to answer questions for consumers and to drive them to go deeper into that answer. Obviously, this is all before AI overviews. But now it takes roughly 6 page scrapes to get one visitor. And by some accounts, that's not even that is like the lowest end of how much it takes. It could be something like 250 to 6,000 to get to one user. And what is exciting about this is that I think the volume of scraping is increasing, which is a really good sign for publishers. The fact that it's not driving users back to the website just indicates that this is a shift in where consumers are wanting to get the actual answers to their questions. But it still means that the content that sits behind that answer is extremely valuable because of the frequency that it is being accessed. And we know in this new AI world that as all the companies sort of participating in the global economy have this mandate to go more and more AI, they're finding that the foundational models alone do not are not sufficient for actually building the applications that they need that are either for their business use cases or for the consumers that they serve. And so there's kind of a new set of things that we understand that real-time AI needs as it relates to content. The first is the absolute best inputs, because without extremely high quality content, the answers that are coming out of these different models can be really like very, very bad. There was a BBC study recently on all of the model outputs and their error rates. You can just go take a look at it to quote the exact specifics, but somewhere between 40 to 80% of answers from models that don't get grounded in real content have some degree of error, either major or medium in terms of their severity, whether it's a hallucination, a misquote, conflating fact and fiction. So we know that there has to be good information going into these systems. The other thing that we know is that speed is absolutely paramount to how these systems operate. As any of you who have used any of these applications and experienced it having to think and reason over a ton of information, when AI is slow, latency becomes a really significant sort of user happiness pain point. And so being able to very quickly reason over important inputs is absolutely paramount. AI systems need really good structured data, in part because anything that you have that's a part of what you're asking an LLM to reason over that is not tied to the content required to generate the answer can either create distraction in the answer or is just token wastage because it's stuff you don't need, like site navigation information or ad slot information if you're looking at the entire markdown HTML of a page that you might be scraping and crawling. We know that AI systems need more data than just words. There's so much context and so much information that we as publishers can provide in this environment that goes beyond just what you can see on the page or just what a single page could provide to you, like understanding what the kind of cross-content engagement is for any individual user. Most AI companies today have to build their systems in a way that allows them to feel confident that they're not running afoul of copyright. And so as we evolve this ecosystem, we know that rights clearance is actually important because you end up with either a huge liability legally sitting kind of in your business if you're building an AI application, or you have to build your AI application to reason over more inputs and to generate an answer from more sources so that you don't run afoul of copyright. And then lastly, not every AI application is built the same or will have the same revenue structure or payment architecture. There are going to be many ways that AI companies are going to be able to pay content owners for access to everything that I said above. And so we need to have a flexible architecture and a flexible and dynamic system that allows us to all participate in this ecosystem together. When we started talking about CoMP, a huge part of the discussion that we had, and Hillary is smiling because I think that she remembers these days, was just like kind of coming back to this core question of like, is anybody going to use this? Because are AI companies really going to pay content owners for information that they access? And this is my favorite part of this because every time we talk about this, like this is the aha moment for everyone. AI systems and companies that are scraping and indexing and structuring content for AI companies, they are already charging their clients for access to content on the web. Anyone who is building an application is installing these services to allow their agents or their AI application to access the web. If you installed OpenClaw tomorrow, and I'm not an OpenClaw expert, so this is just anecdotally from other people, one of the first prompts on the install is, where do you want to get your web data from? Is it Brave, Exa, Firecrawl, or one of these other services? And this is the rate for 1,000 searches or queries into these different APIs or grounding services that buyers are paying today. And so this isn't a market that already exists, and companies are already paying for content. They are just not yet paying the publisher because many of these companies have been allowed to get access to our sites for free for far too long. And so what we know from this, all of this, is that AI companies need access to information. They're accessing it at a rate that is absolutely staggering and is really disintermediating the publisher and their user. And they're already paying for it. So they need it, they need it at scale, and they're paying for it. So now it's time for us to start to build the marketplace for how we as publishers, the supply, the oil for the AI gold rush or the boom, I'm mixing my metaphors here, actually get paid for the source material. And there are really two pieces to this. The first one that we're going to talk about is step one, which is stopping people from taking your content for free. If we advance the slide, there you go. Nice little animation there. So I'm going to talk for just a minute or two about how People Inc. went about starting to go about the process of stopping people from taking our content for free. In July of 2025, sort of acknowledging that the dynamics between AI companies and publishers were shifting, we participated in Content Independence Day with Cloudflare, essentially pressing the button and putting the dome down around our content. However, the way that we did that was by implementing a block list for disclosed agents that were known by Cloudflare and identifiable by Cloudflare as companies we did not have legitimate business relationships with. And so you can see kind of the challenge with this, which is that most crawlers and scrapers do not identify themselves. And between July and December of 2025, the volume of scraping that we were observing across our network was just exploding. And so, in partnership with our network engineering team, we looked at the data and we found that a block list was just no longer going to be sufficient for us for two reasons. One, the volume was too large and the mechanism was not correct. And two, there were too many of them popping us up for us to sort of sustainably be able to manage by humans identifying the different bots and putting them on the block list. And so in January, we started our move from a block list to an allow list to essentially say, if you do not have a legitimate reason or a legitimate partnership with us for accessing a site in real time, you are on our block list. And we started by implementing that on a handful of our properties, observing behavior, understanding that we broke a couple of things related to linking and email syndication. We fixed them right away. And then by the time we hit March of 2026, our whole network had onboarded to this new approach where we were essentially saying, if you are definitely a bot and you're not on our list, you are blocked. And alongside of that, using the rules within Cloudflare for understanding bot score and their heuristics there's a range at which if you are potentially a bot, we issue you a managed challenge that says you have to confirm for us that you're really a human. And the things that we've been keeping an eye on and that we did through that process and we continue to watch are what happened to traffic, what happened to revenue, and what happened to our users. And the spoiler of all of this is that the answer was nothing, nothing, and nothing. There was no impact to our traffic, there was no impact to our revenue, and there was no impact to our users. And that was really the thing that we kept an eye on, including watching that maybe you're a bot a solve rate and seeing that about 0.03% of those actually went through to the web destination, which means that we're not really hitting a lot of humans with that challenge. We're mainly hitting bots who are not able to confirm that they're humans. And so I think this is partially due to the fact that we had really good controls already in place around non-human traffic for our properties. And so we were already really aggressive. This just took this to a whole new level. And many of these bots don't end up actually going and sort of rendering the full page. And so that's sort of the why behind the observation that we had around traffic and revenue and user impact. And so the next piece of this, like once we had kind of confirmed that we were on the right path here, we started to talk about what is it actually going to take for us to start to monetize all of these calls that we are now blocking from all of these different crawlers and scrapers. And so, working closely with CoMP under Hillary's leadership, we participated in that working group to essentially say, what do we think the right initial set of standards are for how we would pass data through to these different companies about content to help them decision over whether it's worth purchasing or not. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Hillary to talk more about the comp standard and some of the ways that we've thought about how People Inc.'s approach and other businesses have informed like advice on how to make your own business decisions around blocking.
Thank you so much, Lindsay. And there's a really good question in the chat that I will get into before I go into the API. Have we heard of the Spur Coalition? Yes, I'm actually very, very close with the Spur Coalition. Tech Lab and Spur, I consider them a sister organization. So where the protocol that I'm about to talk to you about handles the actual communication between the AI systems and the content owners, Spur is on the back end of that handling the reporting piece of it. So when your content shows up, knowing how often, where, and how it was represented. That's what Spur handles. So it handles the after the fact. Lindsay, I don't know if People is working with Spur, but Tech Lab is well aware.